Any discussion? All in favor? So ordered. Thank you, everyone. If we could please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance, remain standing for a moment of silence. Yourself. Pledge allegiance to the flag. Board of Education would like to recognize a loss to the Monticello family. Longtime employee Diane Lubineski recently passed away, and we would like to pay our respects with a moment of silence. Please bow your head. Thank you very much. Science electronic devices as needed. Motion to move the agenda to the table. Made by Mrs. Rivera, seconded by Mrs. Holmes. Any discussion? All in favor? So ordered. Dr. Evans, any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda?
There are none at this time, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Motion to adopt the agenda as is, made by Mr. Groden, seconded by Mrs. Holmes. Any discussion? All in favor? So ordered. Approval of minutes, June 1st, 2023. Motion by Mrs. Galligan, seconded by Mrs. Rivera. Any discussion? All in favor? So ordered. Approval of special meeting minutes, June 5th, 2023. Motion by Mrs. Holmes, seconded by Mrs. Greco. Any discussion? All in favor? So ordered. Thank you very much, everybody. Mrs. Greco.
I motion for the acceptance of the consent agenda F1 to along with tonight. M2.
Do I have a second on that? Made by Mrs. Jersey. Any discussion? All in favor? So ordered. Thank you very much. So moving on to information reports and discussion. Board roundtable. Gonna start with Mrs. Riley.
Hi, so I attended the 8th grade moving up ceremony, which was, it was well, it was very popular, I should say. There's a lot of families there in attendance. It was actually definitely a full house, and there was a lot of just goodwill and cheering for all of the students, which was great to see. And it's great to somehow harness that community involvement and other events as well, because it was just that well received, I thought. So very grateful for that. I also attended a virtual meeting, part of my training that's required for this year. I did that last weekend, so that's all squared away. Woo-hoo! Woo-hoo! That's great. 6 hours in for that. Also, my understanding is it's during roundtable to bring up a couple other issues, so I'm just going to bring them up. There's 2 of them. Familiar with that I submitted to everyone a program about having a moment of silence instituted through all the schools, like district-wide, following the Pledge of Allegiance. It would be roughly time of 10 seconds or whatnot, just for a moment of reflection. It's actually a program that's has been developed and implemented in New York City schools from their data with positive results as far as students having a feeling of well-being and calmness throughout their day, with connection to family involvement at home, the program. So I just putting it out there that was sent via email to the board, just to look at and consider prior to the start of the school year, since it would be most beneficial to start before the school year and to have some consistency throughout all of the schools, having it be district-wide. So, one thing. So,
Any thoughts, is now a good time to chat about this?
Sure.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that, or anybody have any input that they would like to include in Mrs. Riley's talking about the moment of silence? Yes, Mrs. Russo.
I think it'd be a great idea and it kind of aligns with our social emotional wellness. Taking a moment to reflect, whether it's a moment of silence or a moment to gather your thoughts and reflect on how your day is going to go. I think it's a great idea.
I think my take on it would be, I think it's a good idea. I think it would be nice to have buy-in from the bottom up. I think a good idea is a good idea wherever it comes from, whether it's us, support staff, teacher, administration. Maybe it's something, an idea that coming up, maybe at board retreat, we could float it down and see kind of what the consensus is, because at the same time, I don't want to dictate to buildings and have them not be bought into something, because at that point, you're going to lose any effectiveness that it might have. So maybe administration can take that information and just kind of get the consensus of the building administrators and stuff and see if it's something that they also think would be a good idea and something that would implement, and how that would work in with social emotional learning, and to have that moment of reflection or forward thinking of how my day is going to go. But it's definitely something, I think it's worthwhile. It's just implementing it in the correct ways so everybody from the bottom up feels included and is bought into that premise.
Actually, could you please forward to me what you sent to the board?
And then also, I have taken some input from parents who have children here and also are in the education field. There was concern that it would have to be, staying at the program, it would have to be discussed thoroughly with teachers, not thrown upon them to say, hey, oh, by the way, you got to do this. It's more like, and same with the students, it would have to be possibly like a week-long sort of discussion in the beginning of the school year to discuss what the purpose was, what it would be used for, before just springing it upon everybody, since it would be a new idea and to make it purposeful. And I also had other families discuss how they actually grew up having a moment of silence at private and public schools in other areas of the not in our country, but in the Caribbean. And some thoughts were it became like the pledge, how some just they go about the motions, but they're not really thinking about it. So I think that there is a balance there. I think there are people that when they say the pledge, they think through the words, and then there's other people who, you know, they have, you know, have made it become commonplace.
So forward the program up to Dr. Evans, and you know, at that point, the development process or implementation process could kind of actually started to be talked about and developed, and see how everything could be done. Because like you said, you wouldn't want to see it Rutherford and not in Chase or something like that. So pass that information along to Dr. Evans.
Thank you. The other piece I'd like to discuss is looking through the policy. Well, it starts where there's been some symbology and flag signage at the school that could be and has been for some folks not as inclusive with beliefs. So just looking through the policy, the only policy that I see on flag symbology pertains to the American flag. So it's starting by saying this is our flag, this is our unity. Our flag is, our American flag is what we have in common, and this is our uniter. It doesn't talk about other symbologies and flags. So I would like to understand more policy or provide more detailed policy as to what the rules are as to what flag can be represented and where in the school specifically. So if that could be brought up, say, on an agenda and executive session, or however that's to go about.
I can speak in general terms, and that's, most symbols, flags, etc., displays, if they are raised by a student or a student club, they generally have to go through the school's administration for approval, generally speaking, and that approval can be tacit. That approval can be the administrator walking by it and seeing it and allowing it. That approval could be submitting it to an administrator ahead of time. Schools have different rules around where things might get posted. So if you think like zoning laws, like there might be, particular bulletin boards in this wing, that's where things get posted and everything else is it's not there. Or they can be just post wherever, right? So those vary, and there's generally, as a public institution, so long as the speech is not hateful, obscene, or threatening, advocating violence, it's generally allowed to stand or to be posted if the school allows things to be posted. Now, a school could take a position where we don't post anything on our walls. I don't know that that's the appropriate solution either, but generally speaking, if you allow some things to be posted, you become kind of like a public forum, right? You have to allow other things to be posted. So again, so long as they're not, obscene, or promoting violence, or something along those lines. And just be clear, that kind of First Amendment line, because now we're getting into kind of a First Amendment issue, that line is always shifting. And I know you attended some sessions this year as a new board member about those First Amendment issues and what speech is protected with. So kind of how that line can sometimes move, right?
Sure. So if I may, I saw, for example, with DASA regulations, how you're not to discriminate, and they give you a swath of what you're not to discriminate against. And a lot of it is the gender, sexual identity, those things, but also religious practices and religion, period. So the problem lies when messages that are not just unifying as the flag would be not inclusive of everyone. So that's where, it hasn't been perhaps an issue in the past. It's just happened to be what has been seen this year in place of prominence with certain flags and symbology. And so I'm just looking out for people who are all different beliefs. Like we all can put our own things on the wall, perhaps, but like you said, it has to be approved by the principals. So if the rules are that it has to be a student club, and that's it, or if it has to be presented by a student, but you can't really be a student and put up your own symbology or flag wherever you want, it's just not clear. And that's where I think the problem lies.
So, those are discussions that we can have with our administrators as we kind of reset for the year. But just to be clear, if any individual, parent, student, et cetera, a staff member objected to or found a sign to be offensive or not inclusive, I would encourage them to contact the school principal and ask questions about it. Should those questions not be answered there, then you go up the administrative chain from there. But we can certainly have discussions. I myself have questions about do we allow people just to post anything anywhere on the walls? Can anybody who's running any type of fundraiser just find this spot on the wall and post it? How, what is the extent to which it is being reviewed by building administration? Is it an appropriate fundraiser? There's a lot of questions that go along with it. I think it does warrant some discussion among administration, but I would encourage anyone who, you know, if there's particular complaints about a sign, that be raised with the school administrator first. And go from there.
Linka.
First, I'd like to just congratulate all of the Monticello Central School students who have partaken in their moving up ceremony, as well as the seniors that will be graduating this Sunday. As this year closes, as a board member, we all play a pivotal role being part of an educational institution and creating a safe and supportive environment for all students, which can positively impact, as Ms. Ashley had mentioned before, their mental well-being and educational experiences. With that being said, I'd like to touch a little bit on what Ms. Ashley had just spoken about as far as symbolisms. I would think she's referencing a specific flag, which might be the pride flag. And for informational purposes, the pride flag symbolizes diversity, inclusivity, acceptance, but also celebrates those diversities. And I think part of our role is to create a safe environment where all of our students feel inclusive and they belong and they are appreciated despite their identities or their sexual orientations. So while I think it is great to have conversation about these topics that can affect parents and students, I'd like to just elaborate on our role as far as ensuring that we are fulfilling our roles as ensuring that our education institution is supportive and inclusive of all students.
I attended the Chase Field Day. It was quite entertaining. I also attended the Chase. It was like the general music concert and also the choral concert. It was really good. I can't say I've been to many elementary school concerts really, but the kindergarten and first graders did sign language with their signs. The fourth and fifth grade general music classes, some of them sang, some of them played instruments. Like, it was pretty impressive. It was very impressive. And, you know, kudos to the students and I think Mr. Corbett for kind of, it was just really nice. It was really nice. I think I did one other thing, but I can't remember. So,
Mr. Percy.
been busy, as we all know. So I attended the district-wide art show, which the work was phenomenal. Also the last night chamber music for the chamber concert. It's absolutely incredible. They were all incredible. That and senior awards last night, the varsity first ever award ceremony there, it was absolutely warranted and great. I can't wait to see next year's. And of course, the highlight was the audit committee before this. And we had the entrance conference for the exit for our external auditor. So he will be giving a report in September.
Technical difficulties in here. So I attended the Rutherford Living concert. So now, it was beautiful. Presentation for Mr. Palmer. And so that was really fun. I also went to the Juneteenth celebration for Sullivan County on Monday. And I have to say, like, it's interesting because I woke up thinking about Elaine Williams that day and how she motivated me not to do any work. But but it was wonderful to see our community come together out there, and her spirit was there. And so it was really special. It was a really special day, and Elaine would be really proud. So it warmed my heart. And then last night, I was at the senior awards night, and I want to thank Todd and Helen for coming up and assisting me, since no one gave me notice that I'd have to be presenting awards for me at you in Trembling. And thank you. I did put those good ELA skills to work, pronouncing names that I had never seen. But my teachers would be proud. But it was a wonderful night. Students got to be celebrated about their achievements. And I think the most beautiful part actually was watching people be courted. And I had never really thought about, like, as a person who's been hooded, the power at such a young age to be courted and how that practice can be built upon to look forward to advanced degrees. And that's something that had been I have been marinating on since last night, that idea of how powerful that action can be, and maybe also encourage people to gain further degrees of knowledge. And so it was the first time I'd actually watched it happen, and it was really powerful. And so I'm sure they've been doing it for years, and I hope they continue to do it, because I saw it as an empowering action.
Very much. Got it.
And it has been busy. Earlier this evening, we said goodbye to some of our teachers who are retiring after many years in our district. I just want to say again, thank you for all their service to our district. And I want to wish them the best. They will be missed. And I hope they enjoy their retirement. In addition, as part of the graduation committee, I'm excited. Monday is graduation. Congratulations to all our seniors that will be there. And we're all going to pray that it doesn't rain on graduation day. And out of all the things I think I've attended, it is just a busy time of year at every level, for every school. I think I just want to say thank you for, I guess it's for our athletic director, or say again, director, I get that confused, director of athletics. DOA, I like that. The award ceremony that was put on for the students was over the top. I mean, I haven't seen anything like that on my tenure on the board, or even as a student of Monticello High School. So I just want to say thank you, and I am looking so forward to next year's award ceremony. It was amazing. And that's pretty much it.
I had the absolute honor of attending that first annual varsity awards put on by our director of athletics, Mr. Ryan Jasper. I'm so happy that when we promote from within, that we have reap a benefit so quickly. The immediacy was like, put him in, all of a sudden he's making changes for the better, and recognizing the students for their merit. MVP status, you're going to have people talking about that, and then other students will want to be that way. And then also had the pleasure last night going to the Senior Honor Awards, and it was done in a great time frame. It did not burn 3 hours as it had passed and passed and passed. It was done quickly, but with the dignity. And to Trustee Grego's point, the courting was amazing. I also like the recording, because they got up and there was a lot that had multi-tassels, and they just, there was so much authority there with, yeah, I did that. And it was beautiful to see the seniors dust it off, and I can't wait to see them in their full regalia very soon on Sunday. That's it.
Mr. Groden, Mrs. LaRusso.
I also attended the ceremony, and it was amazing. I cannot believe it's the first time in 7 years that the track team was asked to participate. And I'm curious as to, since they're part of our sports program, do we fund them at all?
Technically, they're,
So we don't, no money gets
I
given to
don't
them?
have the answer to that.
We recognize students who participate, but it's really an out of district club.
It was nice to see them part of it, and I'd like to see that to continue, that we recognize our track students. I also attended the St. John's PTO meeting. There's a lot of people there. I was surprised when I walked in. They voted for their officers and made plans for next year. One question I do have about St. John's is, in the cafeteria where they feed the children, is there a salad bar? Are there like fresh vegetables and fruits over there for our students?
There's fresh vegetables, and fruits. I don't know that I'd call it a salad bar.
So there's no salad bar over there?
No. So,
How do we get them to salad bar?
well, I think it's one thing to get, I'd say to get a salad bar is probably relatively easy. I think the larger issue is staffing it, maintaining it appropriately. So, we can look into it. And these are things that we're having at, district-wide discussions with food services about making the salad bars operating and functional as salad bars and not just baggy pickups.
Yeah, especially the little ones over there. I think it'd be important for them to see you. I also attended the last like chamber, the West New Jersey, it was beautiful. The awards, arts awards, and the 8th grade graduation, which was amazing. It was phenomenal. And the only question I do have, do we have a dress code for such events?
Yes.
Do we possibly revisit that for next year? And also to regards to trustee Riley and trustee Rivera, I do agree about being inclusive and all that. And there are other students that need to be represented too. Like, the Christian flag represents Christians as well. So if we're putting up one flag, students should be able to put up other flags, which, as you said, Dr. Revan, that's something that we're going to, I guess, review across the board about things that can be put up and things that cannot be put up. As far as
Well, I think
students.
just the general posting procedure, having it commonly understood within schools. In other words, how does something go up on a wall?
Because I thought it was through the one policy about student expression that if it was a club, it would have to go through the administration or the principal before something is posted on the wall.
Yeah.
Okay. Congratulations to our seniors and our 8th graders, and good job to the staff for this year and to those that are leaving us, that are returning. That's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Russo. I also attended, hey, well,
First.
no, you go.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that I followed up with what Ms. Rivera said, because I just want to make sure that it was clear that no matter what flag it is, if it's not the American flag, then there's always going to be some perhaps controversy or some kind of conflicts between people. That's all. It has nothing, like I could talk about the Christian flag and I love Jesus right in it. And I could say, as a Christian, that's inclusive for everybody. But there are going to be people that are saying, no, that's not me. That doesn't include me. So that's the issue with it. You could put up anything of love and it's still going to be, there's going to be some differences in how you express that. And it has nothing to do with not being compassionate towards people, and caring for people. So I understand your point, but I just want to make my point as well, that there are some symbols outside of the American flag that are taken different ways. And you can still appreciate somebody's beliefs without taking them on yourself and having them be your own beliefs. Everyone can have their own beliefs. And so that's where we're at. It's just trying to find that peace and harmony in the schools where everybody's represented. Thank you.
I also attended the varsity award ceremony. Mr. Jasper did a fantastic job with that. He didn't pull it off by himself. So thank you to all the coaches, staff and personnel that helped him bring that together. It was a very nice night. And I agree with Ms. LaRusso. It was very nice that the draft team was included in that. They've had great success over the last couple of years. And it's very nice to have them recognized inside the school in a forum such as that. Earlier this evening, we had a Board of Education recognition of our retirees. Quite a few people came, and thank you to them. A lot of people did not come, but our thanks and gratitude go out to everybody who's retiring from the district. We recognize your years of service, of helping mentor, tutor, educate our children, from administration, teachers, support staff, everybody from top to bottom. Thank you so much for your service. We truly appreciate it. I think that's about it. We do have graduation coming up on Sunday. I just want to remind, I'll do it again. I'll do that in upcoming events. So that concludes board roundtable. Moving on to director reports. Questions, comments, concerns, director reports. Bueller? Bueller? All right. Moving on to correspondence outcomes. We don't have any at this time. Which brings us to the capital project update, which is our beloved Dr. Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Crowley. So it's actually rather busy with the capital project right now. So first and foremost, tennis courts are about to be surfaced. And a question has come up about, we've decided on the color scheme. Part of the decision of that on that color scheme was the application of a decal of a logo, of the Panther logo. However, that logo was not in the original design. And the contractor who's going to be applying surfacing wants to know if the district is willing to pay for those logos to be placed on the tennis courts. According to our architect and construction managers, the estimate for one logo would be approximately $7,500. So I'm seeking, I guess, feedback from the board about, and Ms. Phelan can chime in as well, about whether or not we want to move forward with it. I think we probably could find the money. However, that would be drawing from someplace else in the project because it's a finite. Again, we're within that $54 million. So it'll get surfaced and that's already in there. But if you want the Panther logo on there too, or Monticello Panthers, that's extra.
So the court gets surfaced, the logo can be applied after the fact.
Right, yes.
It's not like inlaid. Where you do like 2 coats of surfacing, then you would put the logo, then you would put like, just say a clear coat on top of that where it would actually be embedded.
If you were to buy if you were to pay for it now, I don't know if they would do that or not. But certainly you could always put a logo on after, but it might be wear a little differently than the method you're describing. I don't know what 7,500 covers the process.
Yes, yes.
How many logos are we looking to put on there prior? 5?
We do a little bit more. I don't know that we're looking, I mean, we're looking for logos on. I don't know that the number was ever determined.
I would almost say you'd probably have like your center court would probably be where your logos would probably end up going.
It's a medallion that's gonna be recessed in the asphalt.
Well, that's what Tim was kind of asking.
I think what Dr. Evans is describing, like, let's say in the out of bounds area on this corner and say the opposite corner, if you had like a Monty Panther over here and maybe like the school seal down here or whatever it might be, that instance in that corner, let's say it's 6 feet by 6 feet, approximately something like that, that logo from the sounds of it would be $7,500. So if you did like opposite corners, now you're looking at 15K. So that's why I asked the question, if it's something that's after the fact, let's get the court surfaced and maybe we can find a different vendor that could do it at a more economical rate. Or if you said, okay, well, we want to do 4, knock the number down to like 5,000, you know what I'm saying? And then for 20, you're getting 4 instead of getting 4 for 30, you know, at that point, you know, because they're coming out to do 1. If we do, you know what that's kind of what, but if you can do it after the fact, it's something that the courts are done, they're playable, they're competition ready. The niceties, okay, well, maybe in August, we can get somebody to come in and give us a bid for a little bit better than 7,500 per. That's why I was asking that particular question.
I also think, given the late stage of the project, so we're closer to the end of it than, you know, we're not in the design stage anymore.
No.
You know, kind of
Squeeze
squeezing
that
it.
finish. Got it. So I would go along with that later and buy if we get it. And truth be told, when I played on Middletown's course, it was in a single logo.
Well, there's that also.
So, you know, you have a nice old sign hanging on the fence too, and then everybody gets.
Well, and then you can also get a new sign every couple of years, or maybe this year you'll have the seniors on it, next year you'll have those, you know. But at that point, you're,
LEDs, you know, inlaid in the court. I mean, like, we could do anything, but we don't need to just because they brought it up.
The Middletown. Got their little envelope in between the courts, so it's not.
Whatever.
So it's let's wait for another day.
would it be to, what is the board, what do you guys think? Or what if they did a simplified logo and instead of like a big old panther, they just did like the Monticello Block M?
They got it.
So, one other question. There was originally a question about the color, right? Which is picked out because our emblem.
Blue and gray, to make an emblem stand out a little bit better.
Would this color change if we didn't do the emblem, or would it still remain?
At present, it would still remain the same.
Like they're gearing up to do it this week.
Forget that.
Which means they probably already bought the material.
Yeah, forget that.
I'm sorry, Vicky, you asked.
I just want to know is where will we find this money from? That's part of
Well,
the
it'd be a
capital.
change order.
So we would have some sort of budget for this.
No.
We could use money that's still left in the capital project. It's less somewhere.
It buys you less drainage in phase 4.
No. Oh, no, I'm Shrek's backyard, no.
Yes, Mr. Groden.
I got a great one. I want a nice medallion. I want metal and then just sink it and forget all this. I like later. I'm putting my 2 cents in. All right, like later, you put a nice old medallion down. And
So
cut it out,
we'll,
put it in.
we'll leave the change order on the table, move on with resurfacing the court, and we'll, you know,
You don't think it's better to do it now with the overlay and then let it go?
I don't even know if that's the
I don't know what the
process.
process.
I don't even know if that's the process. Maybe that's something we can just have Stephen clarify with the contractor.
Well, yeah,
Because that, my thing is, if you're thinking
Oh,
about
I-
it later, to be more money
I understand.
and not hold up as well. So maybe we need to fight the bullet in front if that's really what's going.
Yeah.
I, all right, or
I advocate no ever emblems and put up a nice sign that can be replaced, that will be actually seen by people from far away. You know, I mean, sure, logos on the pavement would be lovely. We have many capital improvements that need to be made before.
At least
put
that's the
stickers on
best
the
use of
floor, right?
up
So,
to $15,000.
yeah, so I would rather save our money and spend it on boilers
It's like you're
or
buying a car and you're like, hey, we'll also
windows,
do
culvert pipes. you know, all
round
those
tires
things.
at the end.
All right, so I think we have a pretty firm consensus for right now. We'll leave that be. Fantastic.
all right, some other things going on. We're working through punch list items in the 100, 200 wing of the high school. A flooring specialist is currently developing a plan and a quote to remedy the off-gassing that's in rooms 111, 113. Off-gassing, for those of you not aware, is like new car smell. It doesn't smell like new car smell, but that's off-gassing in general. We expect to have this remedied over the summer. The air quality has been tested twice by 2 different agencies, and even the flooring specialist who came in gave their anecdotal feedback that this is not harmful in any way. It is a distraction. It's not pleasant smelling, and we didn't pay for that. So this is something that will need to be remedied. You will be acting on 2 change orders tonight from GR Noto. They do networking lines, electrician. They did the charging station, not the charging station, the plugs for the new bus garage parking lot. So you may recall that there was an accident there back in, I think, February or so. So one change order is for that repair, which is approximately $19,300. The other is a change order for a credit because the repair of that station was not in the original project. So that would be a change order. We are, however, working with our insurance to file a claim. So there's a potential that money would come back to us through insurance. But even without that, there's a $4,300 credit from GR Noto. So that's what you're acting on. Those are the two different ones you're acting on. And then lastly, they are wrapping up the paving at what's considered the triangle, the entrance to the lower parking lot. So without a kind of architecturally designed plan for the paving of that little strip, it looks like dirt right now, or not dirt, but it's rough. They're going to continue with the original design for now, which is topsoil and an asphalt walkway that kind of leads walkers down into, I guess, further down Breaky and Wood Avenue. So if we ever wanted to pave that, we could at a later date. But right now, to keep this project moving, we're going to go ahead with the original plan. We also don't know fully yet what that, once all that is cleared out, how much space there actually is for car and foot traffic. We are, however, continuing with looking to put bollards around the pole. So it's kind of separate from it. That's all of that.
Is there gonna be a sidewalk on where the tents are for the kids to walk on the other side there by the field, or if there's no sidewalk, it's gonna be straight?
I think there's a sidewalk that might be going in, none at all, parallel to, okay, so this one kind of runs parallel to Brady. But I believe it goes up along Brady. So if you think of it from walking up past the
Would put you on
baseball
the top
field, yeah,
on that side.
but it doesn't go into the lower parking.
Okay, is there plans forward into the lower parking?
No,
So for kids are walking?
no, but they built up the shoulder. So the shoulder's been seeded and restored. So there's more grassy area to walk on. And you'll have that on both sides. Yeah, you'll have it on both sides.
That would either be something that we needed to address in future facility management or a phase 4 type thing, even though I think at present phase 4 would probably be more the windows in the older elementary schools, along with unfortunately just burning it in the ground, but in the form of drainage. Any other questions regarding the capital project? Moving on to upcoming events. The big one I alluded to was graduation on Sunday. If we are outdoors, it starts at 10, be there by 9. If the determination is made that we're moving inside, which we'll get that information from Dr. Evans, if that was to occur on later Saturday evening-ish, graduation would be starting at 1 o'clock. We need to be there an hour early, so that would be 12 o'clock. So if you're attending graduation, there's your times when you need to show up. So that is that. Other upcoming events are on your agenda. The folks that are going to RSA, Janet gave everybody your packets this evening, so everybody got those. So you should be good on that. Okay.
This is.
Rural school. Rural school.
So that's that. I believe the NISBA convention this year is in Buffalo. Yes. So I'm not going, but if anybody, if y'all, that'll be something that's coming up. Probably pretty shortly, I assume, but that is in Buffalo this year. So whoever wants to drive 6 hours to that, feel free. At present, we have the board retreat scheduled for the 22nd. So if you guys can make sure you have that day available, that would be fantastic. At present, we have it scheduled for central office. Depending on how everything goes, we can always adjust that a little bit. But at present, we do have it listed as central office, just so you're aware.
Regarding the work, is this are we thinking 9 to 1 or 10 to 2, or that hasn't been the actual time, hasn't been determined yet, just the date? I didn't know. what
You mentioned full day to cover.
I
everything
mentioned,
that
I
goes on.
because I was kind of envisioning that if we had more of a morning session, including other stakeholders to kind of try to develop a vision and goal mindset. Then in the afternoon, we might be able to kind of, as a board, bring that together into a pointed vision and goal setting. So we can conclude that with a revised vision and goals for the Board of Education for the district.
So I just wanted, like, maybe in helping the group, so we're like a 9 to 3 idea, because all of us would have to be there for the whole time, so. So if there's a morning and an afternoon meeting, that way you need by.
Yeah, well, 9 to 3, that's barely a work day.
No, I'm just asking what the time frame is, so, because I
9 to
don't think
5.
we decided, so you're all, okay. I was just trying to figure out for the group, because I don't remember us ever talking about.
Yep.
A specific timeline.
No.
Okay,
At the present, I would say that's kind of fluid,
great,
but let's say at least a 6-hour day.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
depending on how discussions go and everything moves along throughout the day. I wouldn't want to cut ourselves short and say, oh, we're only going to be here for 6 hours. And we really haven't crossed that finish line, so to speak. And then kind of be wishy-washy about it, or have to conclude another special meeting or extend another meeting because of that. So let's say 6 hours, 3 and 3, but at the same time, if it goes 7, it is what it is. We'll get food.
I just, yeah, for everyone.
I
like,
hear you, I hear you.
Yeah,
I
okay,
hear you.
scheduling, yes.
Yeah. The facilitator,
Not for yet. I,
so that's,
Reserve
like I
today.
said, it's kind of liquid,
Okay.
but we'll figure it out. And I will let you know as soon as I can. Questions and comments from, oh, sorry, did you have anything else, Adriana?
No, I was just helping the group. Get the
Okay,
timeline.
God bless.
Yeah.
8 AM.
9.
I'll come in at 6. I'm up at 5. Questions and comments from the public? None at this time. Thank you very much, Janet. Dr. Evans, Superintendent update.
Thank you, Mr. Crumley. So I want to start by welcoming some new staff who the board appointed tonight. We appointed 3 teachers. I don't think they're here. Kiowa Garcia, a middle school science teacher. Kayla Tracy, a new school psychologist at Cook. Veronica Valiente, a new ENL teacher at the middle school. Welcome. Congratulations. I also want to recognize some folks who are trying some new things on, who are, changing some positions and who are coming back. So first, I want to recognize a couple of our teachers who are pursuing administration work, and they're here tonight. Jennifer Koch and Amanda Depew are our summer school principals. They'll be joining our assistant principals and running the summer school programs. Shannon Leedy Levinson and Aaron Morris are assuming new positions with the district and taking on some more responsibilities because they do great work as it is. So we want to see more of that great work. So congratulations, Aaron and Shannon. Lastly, coming back to the Monticello District, Central School District, to serve as interim high school principal is Dr. Gary Perman. Welcome, Dr. Perman. Dr. Furman will be starting on Monday and will be filling in until we find a full-time replacement. So relative to the administrative searches, we are looking at screening interviews to begin in early to mid-July for the 2 assistant principal vacancies, as well as the high school vacancy. We are hoping for August appointments, looking at hopefully August 3rd appointments for the assistant principals. And hopefully an August 22nd appointment for the high school principal. That's if everything goes well and we're able to negotiate vacation schedules and get people in for interviews and find successful candidates from those applicant pools. Okay, so I'll keep the board and community updated on that as we go through it. A couple other things attached to my report are some nomination forms. This is nomination season. So there are two organizations that are soliciting nominations from their partners. The first is the Sullivan County School Boards Association. They are seeking nominations for the Outstanding Educator Award and an Outstanding Friend to Education Award. Usually, we solicit outstanding educator from administration. However, the board can certainly offer up suggestions. And historically, we seek a nomination for the Outstanding Friend to Education from the board. However, administrators and other stakeholders can offer up suggestions as well. So if you have ideas for that, I would ask that you kind of send them to Mr. Crumley, just to kind of, manage them, and then you let me know what the board feels if there's nominations to go forward. We typically do these every year, so we should be putting people forward for these awards. The other set of awards are the Mid-Hudson School Study Council Awards. These are for the 2023 Awards for Excellence in Administration, School Board Service, Support Staff, and Pupil Personnel Services, and Community Service. So these awards are given in the fall. Sometimes we put people forward, sometimes we don't. Last year, Michelle Knowlton was put forward as a nominee and recognized for Award for Excellence in Administration. Again, here, I'll be sending this form out to the administrators as well for their feedback. But if you have nominees you would like to put forward, just let Mr. Crumley and me know, and we'll go from there, okay? Both of these are due, one's due July 20th, the other is July 21st. So last week, the New York State Education Department issued, I guess the best way to describe it is non-regulatory guidance on creating a safe, supportive, and affirming school environment for transgender and gender expansive students. They would call it an update, and in many ways it is an update to existing laws and regulations. However, it does go in greater depth in terms of scenarios, frequently asked questions, what to do if, so forth. Generally speaking, this document recommends that if a student, the gender identity that the student expresses should be honored by school staff, respected by school staff, and treated as such by school staff. And then working with the student and or the family where and when appropriate on managing that and coming to terms with it or whatever supports are needed. It is, generally speaking, a fact-intensive approach when a student would have these types of expressions and how they are to be dealt with and managed. The state has made clear that the expectation and their interpretation of federal and state laws is that gender identity be recognized by the school. However, it also recognizes there are situations where the family might not want that expression to be made by their child. So the school has to be mindful of how those situations are to be dealt with. And further, that gender expression could, in some cases, according to this document, it is recommended that be kept private. In other cases, if a student were to want that gender changed on their registration form in a school record, that it be done so too. However, once it becomes a school record, then a parent or guardian or caregiver has access to that. So there's a lot of moving parts to this that our administrative team still needs to process and to work through. It does shine light on all sorts of different scenarios and how they might play out. We are also awaiting a client memo from our legal counsel, which typically happens after these types of documents are issued. And I would also expect in upcoming workshops with NYSBA. They have an upcoming law conference, I think, at the end of July, and future NYSBA events to address these types of issues. So our first step as an administration is to raise awareness of this document among our administrators, making sure they understand it. And then going from there in terms of how the rest of our school communities need to be made aware of it. I do not at this time have any suggestions or ideas on what potential policy changes might look like. I would rely on the New York State School Boards Association to drive that, as they do in their policy services. When updates come out, they put out, updated language to policies. There may be things that come as a result of that, there might not. But I would expect more in the near future from NISBA and other organizations on how to apply this document.
In school, I'm sure you're aware of how that will also affect teachers.
Yeah.
And their ability to use their First Amendment privilege, because it's a situation where they may be asked, sounds like, they may be asked to go against what the home is saying that they want for the child, and also they're being asked to have certain speech, that their speech has to be acknowledged as right speak. They're not going to be able to speak what they believe is the truth in the situation. So that, I think, is very challenging, as well as when you're just talking about the child and the administrators and the teachers working with the home and trying to figure out how to speak to the child and give them affirmation of that they have dignity, that they are deserving of any child to have dignity. At the same time, the conflict of enforcing certain speech that's right speech on teachers and staff when it comes to talking with the child and pronouncing what they want to be called, whether they want to be called two genders or one gender, or neither gender, or anything. So it gets very sticky, as you would know. So thank you.
So I read through this and I also read through the original. And pretty much what this is doing is stripping parents of absolutely any right, because a child, not a person who is fully developed by the age of 25, their brain, a child has to give permission for the district to know anything. Only time that a
That's
parent
right, to share.
or if the child wants to, if her name is Susie and she wants to go by Paul, the child has to give permission in order for the parents to know. So parents will have no say. This is wrong. And I want to know if we're going to vote on this, because also it states in here that when it comes to so you create a different file for this child. A parent has to come in and ask to see the child's records before it's even disclosed. The only time a parent, this is kind of ironic, is in the nurse's office. Everything has to, disclosure of any record should only occur where there is a signed consent by a parent or guardian of eligible student. A school official has that's the only place that parents have a right to know anything. So I want to know where you stand on this. Are we voting on this? Because if you read the disclaimer, which I kind of find a little ironic, it states in here that this is informational only, I highlighted, advisory only. It does not represent any official legal opinion of the Commissioner of Education of the State of Education Department. So I want to know where you stand on this form. To me, this totally strips parents' rights. And I've received numerous phone calls about this since it's been released.
So this is non-regulatory guidance. There are areas where it does deal with state and federal law around rights of privacy of the student. And it is the state education department's interpretation that the gender identity as a student expresses it is what the school should recognize, and that the school should exercise good judgment when it comes to how that can or should be shared and discussed with the family. So I believe that this document talks about situations where the school, if a student does come to them and say, I identify by this other gender than what my birth gender was, that the school should be making plans, discussing ways in which the family should be made aware of that ultimately. Now, it advises also that schools are mindful of what the potential repercussions could be for how the students would do that if they were to go home and a parent or family member were not supportive or in agreement of that. So I think this document gives clearer situations where, all right, so this is what you have with this student. What are the facts around this case? And here's what they're recommending the way it be pursued. So there's no vote on this. It is, as you said, informational. I'm passing it along to the board in my report as a piece of information.
So from what I'm taking from this, it's a complete separation. Parents will be here, have no say, student have the whole say. So parents essentially are co-parenting with the school. This is pretty much what I'm taking away from this. And I kind of got that feeling in 2015, but this just nailed it home for me. Parents have no say whatsoever in this document.
But-
And then it has to do with safety. So if we're worried about a child's safety, every school administrator, everybody's a mandated reporter, right? So if we're worried about safety, then a hotline call should be made because you feel that the child's not safe. So it's kind of like a double,
Right.
you see what I'm saying?
But
Like,
there, on that hotline form, there has to be descriptions of what tells you that there's abuse occurring in the home.
but if we're worried about child safety, so we have to keep secrets from parents. School has to keep secrets because that's what this is, a secret from parent. And if
But at the same time, I understand what you're saying. But at the same time, if a student feels that way, a child feels that way, and they come out to a teacher that they trust to come out, say what they have to say, this is the way I feel, this is kind of what I, whatever. The teacher says, okay, at least they just confided in someone they trust. Because obviously at that point, they don't have enough courage as of yet to tell their parents. Okay, so look at that situation. I understand you're saying, hold on, let me finish.
I'm listening.
I understand you're saying like you're taking the family out of it, but the child has already taken the family out of it. And then on a case by case basis, the teacher talks to administration, this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. I know those people, or so-and-so knows those people, they'll probably be just fine with it. Well, let's talk to the student. And even if we wanted to call the parents in and go sit with a counselor and say, look, now would be a nice, safe time to tell your parents what you told me and have them broach that subject with them. I mean, when you're talking about your parents, even if you tell them you missed a homework assignment, you might be nervous to tell them. So to tell them something of that magnitude might be just something that they need help to feel safe to do it. So at the same, I don't look at it as you're taking their parental rights away. I kind of almost look at it as at least the kid had enough bravery to come and tell the teacher that they felt this way. Now, by no stretch of the imagination do I think the teacher should now take the kid to some clinic to get something done. I don't think that at all. But at least they came and they told somebody. Now, will that save that kid from feeling alone and isolated a year and a half down the road where they feel like they have to harm themselves because they don't feel included and they don't have somebody to talk to? And then like Dr. Evans said, in terms of you have the other side of the coin. You tell the parents are fine with it, but the kids are like, I told you not to tell it. That kid still has rights. And but so does that kid. And you just violated his rights. And a 16-year-old can sue us just as much as anybody else.
They may begin their transition at school without parent or guardian knowledge.
So if Todd walks in the bathroom and comes out with a dress, he just started his transition process. So talk to Todd, hey, what's going on? This and that. We have a conversation because we have a good relationship. Okay, so why you do? Okay, well, this is the way I feel. All right. Now we're having an open discussion. If he came in and changed his sneakers, you wouldn't call his parents. I understand it's bigger than that, but at the same time, to lose that trust with that student, you might be very well sending him down a path that is going to end very hard.
I think with this, thank you, Tim and Vicky. I think what this document also supports and encourages is that ultimately for that transgender, gender expansive student, it's important for them to have adult support all around, and that would include the families.
Yeah.
So it would be incumbent upon our school staff, if and when they're put in that situation, to be considerate of, okay, so does your family know? Why not? How do we get to a place where your family might know? This document makes that clear too. It's mindful of the privacy rights of the student. It's mindful of what could happen in the wrong situation for a student, but it's also encourages and recommends that schools make that consideration as well, whatever the situation is in that particular case.
Only if the student says. That's it. This is what it says all over the place. I highlighted, I circled only with students' permission, only the students' permission.
But
So if the student says no, then a parent will not know. And the only way a parent's gonna find out in this district, which I hope they're watching, is if they request to see their student records. That's the only way they're gonna know. And that's sad. Because that should be a parent and a child together working through this.
if the gender change is documented in.
Do we do that? I mean, do we have separate files on students who
I would have to look into that. That I don't know.
students ask the kids the pronouns?
Yeah.
And wait, when did that start?
Whenever they ask them.
What, I mean, like what?
I don't know of any particular case. I mean, I know they do that. I don't know. I don't have any case examples of when the earliest example of when a child asks that they go by a different pronoun than what's on their school record.
But when does our district start asking?
District what?
When does our district start asking what grade level? Kindergarten first?
I don't know that they particularly asked that.
They have on surveys before in middle
Right.
school,
Right.
sixth grade.
Which is why they're not supposed to, which was brought up. And what if these trainings violate a teacher's religious belief or?
Well, that again, much like the other cases you brought up, that would be dealt with on a case-by-case basis.
So we don't vote on this, we just gotta take this as is.
Yeah, there's no vote or
Because
resolution.
From what I've seen with other districts is that they have voted on this and taken certain parts out, left certain parts in. That's what I've seen from different districts around.
I haven't.
So you're just gonna run with this as is.
Our intention is to review the document and apply the document in the situations that might face us based on what's in this document. And also look at whatever legal guidance comes out from our legal, our district attorneys and any future recommendations from the New York State School Boards Association.
Wendy, you have a question? Oh, sorry. Helen,
So in that document, at what point can we make sure that the parent, when the record is asked to be changed, shouldn't the parent be notified? I know it's recommended, but from a district standpoint.
That is not, there's not a procedure to notify the change in the record, to notify a parent of the change in the record. However, it does go into school tool as such. Now, I suppose there might be a setting that a parent can set up in school tool to get notified of changes. But my understanding is there's not a specific notification policy when that happens.
I just find it, I mean, we as parents need to register our children for school. We need to provide immunization records and shot records, everything on a regular basis. And if we don't have the guidance of when someone wants to change that record, that we're not made aware of it, I mean, it's.
Only with
Not
student
process.
permission.
But then when you go to get a shot record, what happens? Your child cannot go to the doctor and get their own shot record. They can't bring themselves to the doctor, but you need to supply those shot records to the nurse. So it's the parent's responsibility to do that. but it's not a parent's responsibility to know what their health record is, and it's been changed in our system.
But it's not, gender identity is not necessarily a health record, right? It's not going through, unless they were getting treated for something. Then it becomes a health record, and then there should be a level of notification. A student asking that their gender be changed on their permanent record would not necessitate a parent notification. My understanding of this document.
But that's just the recommended. Is that something the district can make sure that as we're moving forward, that is what?
I would go by, my recommendation would be let NISBA chew on this and let them develop policy from it. If the majority of the board wanted to write policy that contradicts this, I don't know that I would recommend that, but that would be a discussion at the policy committee level first.
So while we wait for NISBA to do that, we are not going to implement this.
We would, if a situation arose that's outlined in here, we would consult this document, we consult our legal counsel and any existing policy and operate from there.
At what right? At what right do we have to do that? That's a recommended policy.
Yeah, we just recommend it.
That's
I mean,
recommended
It's not a
policy.
recommended, this is not a recommended policy.
A recommended.
It's
It's a
non,
recommendation. It's not a
non-regulatory,
requirement.
it's non-regulatory guidance. Very similar to what we had during COVID. Very similar to a number of other things that we have, which is districts, could potentially choose to not do this and have something bad happen, and then have questions asked of it as to why did you not follow non-regulatory guidance from the New York State Education. So if there were to be a situation in here that arose, we would consult this document. We would consult legal counsel about here's the situation that we have. And what is the recommended next steps? I mean, ultimately, the health and safety of the student comes first. I recognize the rights of parents. I recognize how this is a hot button issue. I recognize how there's concerns from parents about, what have strong feelings about how their children feel about gender identity and expression. However, this document does cite state and federal law that supports students' right to express a gender as they feel.
There's also, we have a very strong bully policy that is covered in here. It doesn't say in here that we have to follow this word for word. In fact, it says up here in the disclaimer part that the department supports the efforts of school communities to implement this update, which is intended to be both a resource and important reminder, for New York State public schools to adhere to the Dignity for All Students Act and other non-discriminatory laws and regulations.
Yeah.
We abide by all this other stuff. We abide by all this other stuff.
Yes, because that's
100% we do, because it's law that we abide by that.
correct.
This is not law. This is just a resource, informational only. And in fact, they do not even, this is not even their official legal, this is their not, does not represent official legal opinion. This is all a disclaimer. This is just a resource. This is it.
But that's what Dr. Evans is saying. It's a resource to
If
use.
something comes up in here, he's following it. That's exactly. what
No,
he's saying.
he said that he would use that as a resource, contact legal counsel, and use any other substance information from NISBA or any other entity, and then put that all together and say, what is the best action for this child? Where we're not going to run astray of federal law, state law, and everything else, to have the best outcome for this particular case for this particular child. But it's a piece of guidance. It says, okay, we'll do this. Well, I understand that, but let's confirm over here. Let's talk about it over there, and then come up with a plan of action for that particular student.
Students have parents. We are not their parents. We want to talk about having family
We are
involved
in
and all
local
this other
parentis
stuff.
when they're in our care.
Huh?
We are in local parentis when they're in our care.
Okay, so what you're telling me is that you make the best decision and the kids are here and the parents have no say.
That's not what I said.
So I
When they're-
want to understand what you
when
mean.
Local parentis is when they are in our care, they are in our care. We have to make decisions that are in the best interest of their health and safety.
So not telling parents what's going on is not in their best interest.
Again, it is a case by case basis about why does the student not want to share that information with the parent? And if we believe that what this document, my understanding of this document is that the more adults in that child's life who are supportive of their gender identity is better off for that child than what's the most appropriate course of action to get the adults in that child's life aware of it. And so that child is comfortable with that. But if the child is not comfortable with that, then we need to be mindful of that.
So what does the parent need to do? To find out this information, they have to request FOIL information, like
If
how
it's a, if it's a record,
I mean, what I hear you saying is they need to have a good relationship with their kids.
great relationship. They're not gonna tell the parents certain things, all their friends are doing something, so they're gonna jump on the bandwagon. It's always different scenarios that can happen, Tim,
But that's just it, though.
but it's not the school. Parents should have to co-parent with the school district. And that's what this document is
But
saying.
how is the school supposed to stop a kid from doing that in the first place?
The you contact the parents and you work together through it. You don't cut them out because a child says no, don't contact with parents. You don't just shut them out. You just don't.
And I agree with Mr. Russo here. And, it was a little different with COVID. We got executive orders that were handed down that we had to follow. This is not an executive order. This is
there
a
were,
recommendation.
true, it's not, but there
It's not
were,
the same.
there were other pieces of
And if
non-regulatory
anybody
guidance in
is
COVID.
paying attention to what is going on in the world today, you will see even in the state of New York, with this document, parents' rights being taken away. And you will see them go before school board that have a different train of thought, which I won't say left or right. And I'm seeing punishment to the parents as a result of this document right here. So I don't want to be somebody that's approving this in our school unless it is being dictated as an executive order or being dictated as something legally that we need to follow. Because it does 100% take the right of the parents away. And I hope the parents out there are listening to what is going on, because we are an upstate school and this document takes parents' rights away. You have practical application and situations, and I understand that, but you do not need to, at this point, be adopting. And if we're going to adopt some of this NISBA stuff, it needs to be addressed and fine-tuned in our policy in order that parents' rights are not taken away, because this document does 100%, and it's not an executive order.
I hear trustee LaRusso, I hear trustee Gallion. My thought is that since we set policy and we have a policy committee, that we can have it where we, under Anthony's blessing, we can craft it in such a way that if such and such arises, the parents can have the option to opt in. They're able to opt out of a state test. I think we could set it up that they have the opt into when their child's chart gets changed, they have their rights because these kids are minors. They can't drive a car. They're not allowed to buy a weapon. They're not allowed to tattoo all these things. So if the records change, we should be able to craft it with Anthony's blessing and say, how can we form this so that the parents have their right at Monticello Central School District? That's a recommendation. Yay. We've seen what state regs have done before. Yay.
NISBA doesn't seem to always be right with their policies that come down. It's like they recommend, but we don't have to follow what they always recommend. Like I've gone to some of these trainings and I've heard him and these things that are recommended aren't always right.
I'd also like to add about the teacher perspective as well, because you're asking teachers for speech, and there's ways there should be guidance where you protect the dignity of a student, and you also protect your conscience and how you're able to speak with a child in your own truth, what you believe to be the truth. So how do teachers get the guidance they need to walk that line, because it is a very tricky line and no teacher wants to get in trouble and no teacher wants to make a child feel embarrassment, and teachers care about the kids. They also, if in their heart of hearts, it's hard for them to call a child by dual genders or something else, that needs to be, that needs to be outlined by the lawyer, however it has to happen. It needs to It needs to be, the
See,
rules need to
teachers
be,
in other schools lose their jobs because they misspoke or went the wrong way based upon the regulations and guidance. If people are paying attention.
So
So there
And
has to be
and
something
schools-
fine tuned here for it to protect everyone, whether it's the parent, whether it's the teacher, whether it's the child. It has to be fine tuned.
So our staff will certainly need professional development on this. Be aware of it and what rights they have and what they should say and how they should address the situation and how to approach it if there's a situation where a student says, I don't want my parents to know. But that would mean that we work with this document, that we work with consultants, that we work with our legal counsel on how to best approach this issue. That's probably going to be coming up this summer, as soon as this summer. Already, my intention is to work quite extensively with our administrative team about what this looks like and how do we bring this out to our school community, including staff and community members alike, and what it means, what it does not mean. What are the rights of students? What are the rights of parents? And what are the rights of families? And, where is the school liable or susceptible to, litigation if it makes the wrong decision or it shares the wrong information. But that would mean that, in future meetings, I'm coming to you with potential contracts for consultants. I'm coming to you with, having legal counsel come out for a day. I'm not, I'm certainly, I want to see what NISBA puts out because they will look at it, with a fine tooth comb. And you may or may not agree with their summation, but their policies generally protect districts from unnecessary litigation and preserve the rights of all, or at least their interpretation of the law as it's written in New York State. So there's not an action here in terms tonight, in terms of adopting or not adopting. This is to raise awareness. It was dated on June 12th. We are still working through this document. We're still, I don't want to get too far down the hypothetical road because without, hypothetical is more than just popping it and what do you think? It's actually sitting down with a document and reviewing it. So that if you want to have somebody come out and work through this with you and explain it better than me, whether that be legal counsel or a NISBA representative or some other consultant, you can do that. I attended a very good workshop on sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression back in the spring. It's put on by Sullivan 180. They brought in a group from New Jersey who specializes in this training. It was a webinar. It was about an hour. Very informative. But it doesn't kind of get into this, in terms of what this document is, but it gives a larger perspective on sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. So that, I appreciate this. I understand, the cultural piece of this and the larger piece of it. I recognize the concerns of parents and families about, wanting to know or be supportive of or having disagreements with. I understand it, but as a school district, we have to take into account everyone's rights, safety, security. You mentioned DASA before, Ms. LaRusso. So the reference to DASA in here is that if a child does, have, a different gender expression or identity than what they might appear to be or what they were born with, that the school has an obligation to protect and support them in that and not be bullied by others, not be harassed by other students. So that is a part of this as well. It goes to your point about staff, being aware, but
so is it still supportive of us? Is it still considered supportive of the student if you don't affirm what they believe to be true about their gender? Are you still supportive? Is that still considered supportive? Or
This-
can you not be supportive in any way unless you call them what they want to be called and that's it, that's the end game?
this document would say that to support students, you should affirm their gender identity as they express it to you.
The keyword is should.
Good, you don't make that mistake.
So at the present moment, the document is here for guide. It exists. First and foremost, Dr. Evans was letting us know that this exists. The state of New York The state education department created this document. They sent it to every school district in the state, I can only imagine. So first and foremost, it exists. That was one of the issues. First and foremost, that's why it was attached to Dr. Evans' report, is that it exists, it came out. So it sounds like at present, there is information in there in terms of what barriers you might or might not should cross just legally to protect the district. It sounds to me like obviously it's a contentious issue. Do we want to wait until NISBA comes out with more guidance and more information to see what it actually is going to end up being? Because at the present moment in time, like you said, it's just guidance. There's nothing in here we actually have to. Well, exactly, but it still exists.
It's just all at once, because
I
they're
understand.
even here.
Well, we're going into the summertime, so realistically, we're gonna have some summer school students, obviously, but we're definitely not gonna have our full complement of students in the school throughout the rest of the summer. So for right now, but at the same time, administrators have to realize this document exists and everything else, which is what Dr. Evans was saying. I'm gonna bring it to their attention and let them know it exists.
They have the copy, they've all received the copy of it. We haven't gone.
But it's just advisory. We're not acting on this across the district at this point in time.
No,
Well, again, if there's like in summer school, let's say a student, expresses a gender that's different in summer school, we would consult this document, we would consult existing policy, and we would consult legal counsel on what's the most appropriate step here.
I think it's, in my opinion, I would wait until at least the first meeting in July. At that point, revisit, and if we need an attorney or whatever we decide to at that point to come in. I mean, so you said it was June 12th, so a month or so before NISBA comes out with something. I don't know how quickly they do that.
But I don't know what other guidance I would be operating under.
But it's just advisory. Like, I don't
Sure,
understand.
but what other,
That would
again,
just be on
Why
the
don't
legal
you just-
side.
2015. Well, why don't you go according to our bullying policy, which I think you guys made a very strong policy on all that.
I'm
All
sorry,
those already,
what policy?
the bullying, I don't know the exact number, bullying policy that you just
Okay, so
adopted.
that's in this, but yeah, that's in this.
But that's strong, that's every, except violation of, not tell parents anything, but that's kind of sort of in here as well.
Right, so this is an update to the
Right? And
2015.
This is just all advisory, all this stuff.
The 2015 document has a little more teeth to it because it recognizes existing civil rights laws and acts, right? So this is an update to that and how to apply these types of issues if and when presented. I do not have other guidance that I am fashioning or creating to protect the safety, health and safety welfare of students and the interests of the district at large. I mean, if we were to, if I were to kind of fashion my own, what I think is right personally guidance, I don't know that I would be representing this district well.
What would have happened if that would have never came out, gone by?
Probably would have that.
This,
The
we
20
still-
2015.
We are still going by.
Yeah,
So this is
yeah,
just-
this does not, yeah.
Policy, that's what we should be going.
No, that's
This
the
is
2015 letter.
2015.
Yeah.
This is 2015. This one is just advisory, which they say that they that any official legal opinion. So
Well,
they
I just
don't even support it themselves, but they're giving it for us.
Well, a legal opinion means that it's not fashioned by lawyers and it doesn't represent a legal opinion.
Advisory only,
Sure.
and hopefully efforts that we adopted. So they don't even fully support this themselves. This is what this disclaimer says to me. They really don't support it themselves.
So the problem,
I think if they didn't support it themselves, they would not have published.
So why would you put a disclaimer on it?
What they're saying is it's non-regulatory guidance. That's what that disclaimer means.
so I think Dr. Evans needs to take this guidance under consideration if some event comes up tomorrow or over summer school, because when some issue comes up that's gray, right? That's this whatever gendered grayness. Do we have our policy? We have state and federal law. Those things we have to follow. But some of this stuff is not black and white in the policy or in law. And so then if we were taken to court, sued by someone because of something, they would say, how come you didn't follow this guidance issued by the New York State Department of Education?
Because it's not the law.
Correct.
Not the
Correct.
law.
Again, what,
Correct, but we would have to have some brilliant, great reason that we didn't follow it.
Because it's just guidance.
No, that doesn't fly in court.
Oh, hey,
But
what-
Well, going no.
You could do this.
But it's suggested.
Yeah,
Like,
psychologist
because-
Erickson said, you don't shit on your friends.
Someone suggests you jump off the bridge, you jump off the bridge.
I'm a strong swimmer, maybe. Never know.
This strongly supports cutting parents out. This is the strong supports. It's divided the family. This is what this supports. And you can argue that there's already divide. Great, you could argue that. But guess what? This is taking parents out of everything here. That a student could be 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, who knows how old the child is. No, don't tell my mommy and daddy. And you're never gonna know. You're never gonna be there to help your child through whatever your child's going through because they don't want you to know. That's what that's saying. I just want you guys to realize that. This is what
I
this is.
totally realize that. I totally realize that. I want my kids to be able to be comfortable, however that needs to happen. If they have to tell someone else first and be accepted by their peers first, then that's what they need to do. And in a very rare instance where maybe not in my family, but in someone else's family, if it was not safe to come out to their family because their dad is going to beat them, right? Or something really bad is going to happen. They can say, I would hope that the school can be a support and allow them to be who they really are and be a safe place for that.
So in school it'll be Jane and at home it'll be John.
You'll be John, right, right. And if that is what your kid needs to do, then, I mean, if that's what they need to do to be safe,
So the
then I
child's
hope that
not
they can do
safe. The
that.
child's not safe. The school district is mandated,
Sure.
for us to make a hotline. call.
And
So if
what
you're
are they
trying
gonna-
if you're trying to tell me
Yeah,
that, no, we're not gonna make that
No,
hotline.
no, 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 they're gonna make the hotline call. If Jane at school says, I can't, my dad is gonna beat me senseless if I tell them, they're gonna make the hotline call. But then what's gonna happen?
And did you-
There's no,
That's not what this is saying.
it is what it says.
Okay, it's saying that you make a hotline call, the child's not safe.
Yes.
It says, where does it say that?
And there's a box, hold on, let me find it.
Because what
There's
it
a
says
big
here-
old bold box that says, make sure you call this number if a student says, don't tell my parents because it's not safe. It definitely is in here. I will find it.
I know that number by heart.
It's a big box.
See it, I see Boyle Park. What I do see is that you need to prioritize the child, and if the child's not safe, don't say anything to the parents, keep it to the parents.
I mean, look, when it comes to,
So it's on the top of page 17 by the page number 28 by the PDF. And it's right after the section, it's right at the bottom of the family knowledge of the student transition section, which is that the root of most of people's issue? That family knowledge of the student transition?
Right.
Mine's the health record. And also typically the knowledge, because I could not know as a parent that this is going on, and I could flip it and say that the student was bullied and I couldn't do anything about it because no one told me about it, and that's why something harmful happened.
Exactly.
But this
Parents
is,
don't know.
but this is not saying that if your student is bullied, the parents aren't supposed to know.
Okay, but if they're not feeling it at home, and because no one ever told me that I need to support them, and something harmful happened to them, and I could have supported them, it's on the flip side of what you're saying.
this document does recommend that school staff find ways to, okay, so does your family know? Why not? How might we make them aware? What's a way to do that? It does kind of push schools to consider that option and use that as a strategy.
I saw that in there and it comment and understand it, but to put trust into somebody, and I don't want this to really come out the wrong way, but sometimes your child is failing, you don't get a call home.
Yeah.
Imagine the other.
So now I'm putting this all faith into somebody who has however many students in their classroom, caseloads and things of that nature, to make sure they call home on this. It's a lot of trust that's being put into somebody that when it's protective.
You know. Students are not required to obtain parental or guardian consent for a court-ordered name and or gender change before being addressed by their affirmed name and pronouns. I mean, they kids make the decision of what they want to happen. And if they want you to know, they want you to know. If not, then you don't know. And that's what is being supported. So you can take it both ways. You can take it that, you know what, it's great, or you can take it as a parent, like, I want to know, and I'm sure there's other parents that want to know, that want to be able to help their children through this. But we're going to cut it all off because they're afraid. They're afraid to go home. Like Tim said, they're afraid if they don't do their homework, you know? This is a great area. If you think that we're not going to get lawsuits from parents, if things like this happen by a guidance,
But it's certainly a much more defensible position to rely on a published framework from the New York State Education Department than fashioning one out of the air, because that's how I feel. What's that? What other framework would you want our administrators to reference when
We
dealing
have
with
this
these issues?
policy, which if
Yeah.
someone's being picked on for their gender or whatever it is, that's governed underneath with the human rights law.
This
You know,
does not, yeah, but this does not abrogate that. This does not take away any responsibilities for us following
But it just
DASA.
takes the parents out, takes the parents out.
Okay,
The
but
parents have no say.
again, this is a framework. I don't know what the other framework is that I would reference or tell my principals to say, oh, just call the parent.
Why do we need the new framework?
This is a recommendation because you have more and more students who are
Is that what
gender
you're seeing in
expansive
our
or
school? Is
transgender.
that what you're seeing in our school?
I don't know that we have data on that.
Well, maybe we need the data on that. Maybe we also need to have the next meeting with an attorney on it. I mean, maybe we all agree to disagree, and then maybe we need to move forward on a more legal level. And maybe we need to take the surveys or some numbers and see what's going on in our school.
So if the board wanted to pursue policy, that would start at the policy committee. If you wanted legal counsel to come in to do a workshop, let me know and I can arrange that. If you want someone from NISBA or another organization to come in to work through this with you, we can do that too.
I don't even know, but I think we need to have this discussion about.
Okay. So and this came out last week. I asked him, should I expect a client memo? And he said, yes. So I would expect something from our legal counsel for, client memo in the very near future. So that I think is forthcoming. I'll talk to them tomorrow anyway and say, hey, where are we? Is it coming out or not?
So at present, there should be an attorney memo coming out to us to talk about the document. NISBA will probably be coming out with policy amendments or whatever the case, they're going to come out with their take on this document. So are we, until we get that information, because I think at the present moment, talking to attorney without having all of the information might be kind of just spinning our wheels, so to speak. So until that occurs, we can always revisit this.
No, NISBA just got this on June 12th too.
Right, so what other information are we waiting for them from? For them to draft their own policy for us to look at, is that?
I imagine they're going through this and thinking about what policies would be affected by this or should be affected by this. I would expect this to be a topic of discussion at the upcoming summer law conferences. If you were attending, I would recommend you, there's one in Binghamton, there's one, I think, in Albany. And if they do see policy changes, I would expect those,
On the agenda for the law conference and stuff. That would-
not yet, but I could see this going that way. I think there's a general hot topic session maybe, but and probably in the NISBA fall conference too. This is something that's not going away soon.
We're gonna wait for them to pretty much draft more stuff. That's gonna be reflected in that.
Or you could have, if you wanted, I could reach out to NISBA and say, you have somebody who will work with the school board to review and discuss this.
I would probably go to attorney to NISBA.
Yeah.
That's fine. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm just telling what the option.
To President Crumley's point, I think waiting to hear from council, waiting to see how NISBA
takes that in and then what policies it will affect, I think it's the best bet to leave. Because if we do get someone, whether, I mean, we're getting something from our attorney, right?
Possibly.
Possibly.
Probably.
Having someone from NISBA come and just talk on the document, but without them having to really review it and understand how it affects current policy or may affect future policy. There's really there's not going to be a consensus, I would think.
So I'll talk to Anthony and see what do they have a timeline on a client memo? And see if he's available to meet with the board to offer an interpretation on this, or if not him, then another.
This was not gonna take it off the table. So everything that's gonna come down from this is gonna be more reinforcement of this document.
Teacher approves speech only in this non-regulatory guidance, not in our policy, correct? Like, as of yet, there's been nothing that says.
There's,
listen, you have to
there's
affirm a
probably
child.
some general language around speech, but it's not going to get into kind of the great,
That this
the
will-
get that you raised. It's not
Yeah,
gonna
I'm
get,
concerned of, like,
it's not gonna get that
English.
great.
Thank
It's more general, about respecting First Amendment rights and privileges.
Thank you.
So at the present moment, I need to kind of get the consensus of the board. If we wait for a client memo from the attorney and at least get a little more information that's coming down from the state, from our attorney, at least at that point, if somebody did come in to talk to us, we'd have more pointed questions instead of just kind of blunt questions, so to speak. Or would you rather just move forward right now and get somebody from NISPA or an attorney in to just talk about the document? Because that's essentially all they're going to do is talk about the document.
I'm gonna have the attorney and explain to us exactly what this.
And what our rights are with the
Yeah.
doctor.
And if possible, if he can discuss some potential cases that have occurred in New York State with regards to students' rights to privacy with their gender identity and parents finding out. I know there's been some cases in New York State, so maybe you can kind of provide some insights on how those cases have.
Yeah, they're down in Long Island right now.
All right, so the consensus of the board feels like that talk to the attorney, have him put together a presentation on state guidance so he can make a presentation to the board.
And
Does that
what our
sound-
rights are concerning that document.
And also, Franklin rights.
What we spoke about over the course of the last little bit of time. Are we good with that?
Yep.
Fantastic. Dr. Evans, do you have anything else?
Yes, I want to congratulate the Monticello High School class of 2023. All of its scholarship and award winners. We're so proud of you and looking forward to hopefully good weather on Sunday and a wonderful graduation ceremony. And again, expressing my appreciation and work and dedication from our staff throughout this school year. Wish all of them, the board, our summers, our students, and families a very happy and restful summer.
Thank
That's
you
it.
very much, Dr. Evans. Any other questions for Dr. Evans? Very well. Mrs. Pala, Superintendent Business Update Information.
So this evening you have the budget status and revenue status, claims auditor and school lunch profit and loss for the month of April. I'm also asking the board to appropriate fund balance to the 2019 capital reserve. I'm asking you to put $2.5 million in there that will fully fund that reserve. So an upcoming project will have that $10 million plus interest. But towards a project that we do still have 4 million and change in the 2015. So it sets you up nicely for a future capital project.
Any questions for Mrs. Pala? Ellen?
Just on the fund balance projection. So 6/30/23 is 11 million. And then it says less appropriated to the 2019 capital reserve 25 or 2.5, so you get to the 8.6. Then on the bottom, it's giving me the balance and taking another 2.5. So is that for next year projection for the 2024? So we're doing 5 million this year. Huh? Okay, that's okay. I didn't know if we were doing 5 or if it was for 24 or, okay.
That's the match.
So your estimated unappropriate is gonna go back up to the 8. Okay.
Any other questions for Mrs. Bailey? Moving on to Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction. Carly.
Good evening, everyone. I just have a couple of things. At the last board meeting, there was a question about our pre-K numbers and where we were with enrollment for 23-24. So I do have numbers for you as of this morning. Right now, as you realize, we have a Healthy Kids program as well as St. John Street. Right now, our 3-year-old program at Healthy Kids is at 13. We can take 1 more student in that program. Our 4-year-old program is at 20, so it's full at Healthy Kids. At St. John Street, we are at 45 for our 3-year-old program and 63 for our 4-year-old program. So we are doing really well for this point in the season. We know summertime will bring in more students, and so we have no worries. We will probably get close to max at St. John Street as well.
What's that?
I think 107 reports. Total between both. Okay.
For St. John's only or both?
Both 3 and 4. Yeah, 3 and 4 between both Healthy Kids and St. John's. Okay, so we also have a code of conduct, just to kind of bring up our code of conduct committee has met a few times this last part of the year. And next year we are planning to continue meeting. There aren't going to be any additional changes to the code of conduct other than what you've already approved, which was the hats at elementary level. We don't have anything additional for next year. So that code of conduct will be reapproved at your reorg meeting. And then next year, we are going to work very closely on language in the code of conduct to try and make the language more restorative. In that same line, I had mentioned several times the street data book, which was sold out for a couple of months. So we finally got it in. This book kind of talks a little bit about culturally responsive discipline. If you are not one that likes to read really heavy stuff, because I've listened to this on a couple of times already, because it's very, very heavy and there's a lot of really important stuff in there. I would recommend listening to it and then having your book nearby to take some notes. But our code of conduct committee will also be given this book and will be encouraged to read definitely sections of it in relation to our code of conduct as we start to make it more restorative and more culturally responsive. So that's what I had. Does anybody have any questions?
Is there a way where you can make the code of conduct meeting later in the day and 5, 6 months so people can attend?
We can look at that. The only problem is we have teaching staff on the code of conduct committee, and so it's harder to get them to be on that committee if we do it after school hours. So that's kind of why we have it during the day. Maybe we can alter, have, 1 month have it during the day, next month have it after school, those kinds of things. Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions, Mrs. Carla?
In regards to this, but all of the programming that's in T13 and T15, I believe that's all of the curriculum programs. So I'd like to know if you could speak to that. So you have Go Beyond Greatness, Follow Us, ENGN.
So all of
Some sort
these,
group.
yeah, all of these RFPs are through the school violence prevention grant that Lyle manages. And these are all things that, so that's a 5-year grant. And we are entering into year 3 of 5. Those are all organizations that have already been used and approved through that grant. So because it's a new fiscal year, new grant year, we're just asking the board to reapprove those proposals as we continue to use them for the 5 years. So there isn't anything new in there that we haven't already utilized or has been approved in the past.
Okay. So the restorative group, this is on T15, the restorative group with Nathan Maynard, that for 9,500, is that part of the funding too? Because it's a separate line item.
Yes, no, so that happened before I came. It was in the fall, and unfortunately, there was not a contract put before the board. So that was, I believe, on opening day in September, Dr. Evans, we had the Maynard group come in and do a presentation to staff on restorative practices. They've also been working with principals and staff in individual buildings to talk about some different restorative coaching practices. So that all happened pre me, but now as we are starting to go through things and noticing invoices that have not been given a PO because there was not a board contract or a contract
Okay.
put before the board. So we're fixing that.
Okay.
That's nothing new. It's already happened.
Sure, okay, so that was already paid for by a grant. Okay, so that's T15, but the ones that are T13, those are all new contracts for this coming school year, correct?
Correct. Those are all the ones I talked about under school violence.
Right.
And again, they are all vendors that have been used prior to this year and approved by the board through the school violence program, because this is year 3 of that 5 years. So we're starting year 3. So in year 1 and 2, these vendors were a part of that grant and contracts of them.
Okay, so these are the same exact programs. And so Go Beyond Greatness, I remember we just talked about that not too long ago, for 25,000, that is, that didn't have curriculum. And that was the sticking point with that one. It didn't have curriculum laid out in detail. It was just kind of an overview with some brochure information on it,
Right.
but it didn't go into, this is the curriculum that we are going to be giving to.
Well,
students.
because I think that we had talked about, there's different things that they're doing. Some of Go Beyond Greatness is taking our McKinney-Vento students on college visits. So there's different things that Go Beyond Greatness is used for. So there isn't a specific curriculum. That would be something as we utilize them for next year. When they speak with classes or with students that are going to college, I can request that curriculum and provide it to you if you would like.
The thing is, I thought we were already going to give that at some point.
They said they were revamping it because we have this and it was very one-sided. And he said, oh no, they're redoing it. We're gonna get a copy of it. And I thought that it was gonna be in here, but it's not. So we do have a curriculum that was one-sided.
So I can request more curriculum for you. But I don't know what they're doing next year. I'm not sure what.
It's hard to vote on it to prove it if you don't know what the curriculum is gonna be, because it was one-sided. Not, in my opinion, not like severely so, just here and there, when they referred to a politician, it just gave. What's her name? Ocasio-Cortez. Just wanna make sure I said her name right. And then also, the artist, Lady Gaga, for example. So, we're talking about how that could be smoothed out, so it could be more. I would say, not so polarizing. I think I used the word.
Yeah, and I think we also talked at that time about how that would be in a curriculum guide anyway. I think those were examples that came up.
Yeah, but I believe that was communicated back to the vendor.
Yes.
But then they never came back and produced any revised curriculum for review. It's just, they're going to just take that. And roll
Because
with it.
again, that wouldn't have been in the curriculum, like they wouldn't have said those individuals. I think they were examples that were discussed during a conversation.
It was in print. It was pre-written, those specific examples. So that
As
was
a
the
part of the
issue.
curriculum or
Yeah,
in the
no,
brochure?
Students put that.
So can you get us if we vote, can you ensure that prior to this school year, we get that curriculum for review?
Yeah,
And then if there is something that is controversial or concerning, we can then send it back and say X, Y, Z,
Just as needed.
adjust as needed.
That would be doable.
And
Okay.
that's with all of the vendors, not just Go Beyond Greatness, because there's Follow Us. I don't know ENG, I looked through it, but some of it looks great. I just don't know all of it because it's not really not in the,
Engine does a lot of art. So a lot of it is student driven to conceptualize ideas and then create art from those ideas. So you're not gonna get, it's an art curriculum and you can take that for what it is.
that's great. That's more information than I knew before, so it's good. The Follow Us, what is Follow Us about then?
Exactly sure what they are used for. Again, I can ask Lyle and get that information. Kind of is his grant that he brings in, and I can have him do a report or have him
That'd
bring
be
the
helpful.
information.
Yeah,
Yep.
that'd be helpful for him to come in and explain what all of these programs are with examples, because that would give us information as to what we're voting on.
Yeah,
So
I think a
those-
lot of it he did talk about when he came and did that presentation that
Yeah.
day. That's why I had to do that and have give you the opportunity to ask him questions when he was here to present to you a couple of meetings ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think he talked about this specifically where he took them to a farm. They had gone fishing. I think the goal was to get otherwise disenfranchised students who wouldn't have access to these sort of events, programs or activities to learn not only social emotional skills and tactics, but also be exposed to some things that they wouldn't normally be exposed to, like team building and teamwork and et cetera. So yeah, he did cover that, but I mean, we still have some lingering questions, so I think to move this along, maybe get some curriculum and maybe an additional presentation of his goals for this upcoming school year. I think we want to understand what are his goals based on what he did last year to what worked well, why it worked well, and then what he's gonna do.
You have a consensus from the board on what Lincoln just said?
Yeah, but I have a question.
Yeah,
For us. I don't see a price.
It's 18,500. But they're
It's
all
in the
through grant.
narrative on the resolution on the action item.
13?
I think Lincoln said it very well. Would we have the consensus of the board to have Lyle come in and kind of give us an overview of what he's looking to accomplish for this upcoming school year? Would that be okay?
Does it mean we table this until we hear from him, or we're voting on it and then just hoping for his information after that?
No, you haven't voted.
It's on T13. What is the status of these contracts? We tabled this, would it affect?
We can't submit appeals and get people reserved to come in and speak. And that stuff. And so
I mean, if we're gonna get the information, and if there's something that the board doesn't agree on, it's a conversation. But I
And
think
it's all organizations that have been with us for at least 2 years as of now.
I can have him maybe present that at one of the August board meetings, so that you have that information before school starts.
Would that be okay with the board?
With curriculum.
Maybe we get it ahead of time.
Prior to evening, that would also just even as a curriculum to review. You came and then that was
Well, if we had that beforehand when he made a presentation, there could be pointed questions. So is that okay with the board?
Yes.
Maintaining the item.
We're maintaining the item. Thank you very much, Mrs. Pond. Moving on. Really? To Mrs. Greco.
I'd like to motion that we move forward for approval at times 1, 16, 19.
As a group. Do I have a second on that? Made by Mrs. Rivera. Any discussion?
T13, I would pull out.
Do I have a second on that? Made by Helen. Any discussion?
Yes, I would like to, I know there's a whole bunch of different things in here, so I don't know how we're gonna vote on it, but I would like.
Discussion is just
Wait,
gonna
wait.
Move it forward.
That's the next one.
There's no talk about what's actually.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
All in favor of taking T1 through T12, T13 through T19 as a group? Very well.
I'd like to motion to approve action items T1 through T12 and T14 through T19.
Do I have a second on that? Made by Mrs. Riley. Any discussion? All in favor? So ordered.
I'd like to move forward for approval action item T13.
Do I have a second on that? Made by Mrs. Jersey. Any discussion?
I'm not sure how to vote on this, but I would like to vote against the,
It's all in one group, so at this present moment, it's either yay or nay. We're not piecemeal on it. Nope, all good. So the way this was set up, they were all in there as a group. So it's yay or nay as a group. We're good on discussion?
Question, just the students that participate in the school prevention program, can you provide some demographic information, with regards to the student base that this benefits the most? Is it high school, middle school, is it a mix, is it,
Enrollment data.
enrollment data?
So right now verbally or get you actual
If you
numbers?
have on the top of your mind.
Yeah, so I would say primarily middle school, high school. A lot of St. John students, are provided instruction through this brand, but it also is bigger than that. Like when we have some speakers come in, they may present to the entire high school. So it's not just necessarily a group of students that gets the benefit from this. It's multiple students, but it has the benefit of targeting areas that social emotional learning that potentially could come out of a school violence, to prevent school violence. So it's a mix. Some things are for everybody and some things are for a select group of students.
So if this were to pass, it would have like.
There's a lot of
huge
great
effect.
programs, in my opinion, that are coming out of this grant that would not be provided to students like they were. So there's a benefit to a lot of students.
Thank you. Sorry.
Are we good on discussion?
perhaps in the future, maybe you could break it down, instead of having everything clumped in together, maybe do each in the future. I'm just saying that if you know that certain things are going to be spark certain issues, instead of clumping them all together, they should be separated out differently in the future, because I think like there's some things in here that I would vote yes for, but there's one thing here that I'm voting no for, so unfortunately I have to vote no for all of them. So just.
Any more discussion? No? So T13, all in favor? Any opposed? So I have 3, Ashley Riley, Victoria LaRusso, and Todd Grover. Motion passes. Thank you. What?
I didn't vote, just so you know.
Oh, are you an abstain?
Yeah, she's.
Okay, so, and Wendy? 5, 3, 1, yes. So that means it passes. Thank you, everybody. Moving on to closing a meeting, correspondence. There's a couple things in there from the varsity awards ceremony. Take a look. Questions, comments from the public. Janet? Nobody. And motion to adjourn. Made by Mrs. LaRusso, seconded by Mrs.